man. We are back live in the building. Hope everybody out there is doing good and great and amazing. And now, the spiritual news. Dun, 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 dun. But yeah, man, happy Friday. Happy Friday. Mhm. Happy Friday to you. So today we're going to be talking about don't forget to like, subscribe, share once again, folks. So today we are going to be talking about how do you know if you have spiritual gifts? Dum dum dum. So yes, how do you know? How do you know if you have spiritual gifts? One thing you should signs and wonders, ladies and gentlemen. I'm telling you, man. Signs and wonders. One thing I can tell you is that seeing is believing, and seeing is believing, and knowing is believing, and knowing that there there are no there's really like no there's like no coincidences out here. Feeling and knowing that it all it definitively happens for a reason. Knowing that you are where you're supposed to be, for that moment, that you're safe, that you're good. I know it's hard for a lot of people to grasp that because for us down here, whatever you want to call yourself, if you're on a spiritual journey, if you want to believe you're a chosen one, for whatever, that's you know I'll say that if you go through a spiritual journey, you are one of the chosen. You now the 144,000. That's more going into the Bible and the children of Israel and all of that good stuff. But if you want to feel like that, cool, man. Because this is definitively your journey. This is what is going to make up for you. Because you have to be able to mentally handle it. And a lot of people aren't able to do that. It's not it is legitimately not for the faint of heart. It really and truly it's not for the faint of heart. Not something that just anyone can do. Just like there are probably things in the world that a lot of like a lot of people can do. Like we can all, if we can all get up and do certain get up, brush our teeth, and you know whatever, scrolling, just do like little simple things. But there are just certain things that are just for you, and only you can do these things, and as you can do. But as you are going on your spiritual journey, when you start to see certain signs, when you start to feel certain things. And what is going on, folks? Welcome to the Soul of a Man channel. Today we are talking about how do you know if you have spiritual gifts. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah, and don't dismiss things as cool. Like when I was in my 20s, I would get these deja vu type feelings, and I would, and probably a little before that, maybe in my teens too, I would feel like certain things or situations I had been through, and at that point in time, I didn't. I was very green. I didn't, have anybody to help me explain um really anything spiritual. It's just church, prayer, and and all that. But I didn't, I didn't understand. I didn't understand spiritual warfare. I didn't understand, real prayer. Really, I just didn't have a, capacity for, like what I was going through and what I was, I didn't have a capacity for like what I was going through and what I was experiencing at that, at that natural point in time for me. I just thought it was something just kind of weird out of the ordinary that of course I couldn't I would say it. I would feel like, I would say like, oh man, you know what? I feel like I feel like I've done this before. You know what I mean? But of course, I couldn't say like, oh man, I'm going through something. You know what I mean? It would have probably threw me in I don't know, one of those uh places where with a jacket where you hug yourself in one of those rooms, where you have to take pills all day. And I have seen that with people and how that works out. And man, that's a horrible experience, man. That is a really and truly horrible experience when people have to go through that, seriously. So, and for me, it, when I was probably later 20s, I was able to see like this color spectrum around, because I was into like martial arts and all that stuff, and that helped, with breathing and your chi and balancing and all of that good stuff. So yeah, I was able to kind of see the color spectrum around people, and and as I went, and as I went along, um, as I went along in my journey, I, started to see different things, started to feel different things, started to, look at certain movies because, that's how they, that a lot of the times, that's how they do. They put like, um, oh, thank you. And so are you, and welcome. And don't forget to subscribe, folks. So, and happy TGIF, happy Friday out there, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Hope you're safe, and hope you guys are having a great week. But yeah, and that's the thing about it. It's like cause and effect in a sense. When you are developing your when you're developing your gifts, really and truly it is cause and effect when you're developing your gifts, because sometimes your feelings, your emotions, how you see things, how you feel about things, all of these things are going to start to be in flux. You're going to start to look and view at you. You're going to look and view the world very, very differently from a lot of your peers. And people are going to look at you differently. It's almost like they're going to look at you like you have wings, or you have, I don't know, you have lasers shooting out of your eyes. You know what I mean? Like it is, like um it even says in the Bible, Jesus said, you're going to do greater things than me. Now, how you want to look at that and conceptualize that's up to you. But I mean, when I was a kid, I had this wild imagination. I mean, I had this wild overactive imagination. Even like as I got older, I still, even to this day, I still have this because I'm a writer in a sense, and that's what that was. I was always into things like magic and watching magicians and learning about history. I was just really into that kind of stuff. Even like the biblical stuff about angels and miracles and and all of that. So things that what I'm saying is that things that happen to you, don't just dismiss them as like coincidence. And now thankfully there are a lot more people out here, probably not in, I mean, well, you could say in the mainstream now, because social, we get our news, and a lot of, we um view the world through the social media lens now. So you can say like a lot of um you know a lot of what was like make believe is, a lot of people are believing now. A lot of people are talking, things in the sky, things in the water, and 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 so on, and so on and so forth. So, and with that, you become very, very, you become very sensitive. Like when I was younger, people would say, oh, you're so sensitive and blah 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 blah. Not no, I didn't know, and the people around me didn't know either. That you can pick up on people, how people how people that is making me, so that is sending me that that is funny. But yeah, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. But yeah, but you when you're when your people will tell you, oh, you're just in your feelings, and that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing at all. So because most people, when you talk about feelings, some people just seem like they just don't have none, because it just looks like someone said, there's just a cruel world out here, and a lot of times it is, seriously. But I'll tell a quick story. One time I was doing security. I had the security job, and one of the managers, he was like, "Oh man, when we look at you on the camera and you look at, this is the way you try to avoid people." And I could feel these people's energy, and I could see that these were like, well, what do they call them, like NPCs, the people who just kind of like just repetition, do the same stuff every day, day in, day out. It's their life. There's just, you can kind of see like there's just like really nothing special about them, just like these company people, they clock in, they clock out, that's it. That's, they worry about, and all that good stuff. Anyway, he was like, "Yeah, man, the way you look at people, like, yeah, man, I don't want to be around that negativity. I don't want to be around that kind of energy. I personally, I don't. I don't want to be. I don't. Sometimes you kind of have to, and that's just what that is. But yeah, I don't. No, that's why, spiritual sensitivity versus anxiety. A lot of that stuff sometimes I can now I know how to work with my emotions a whole lot better. I know how to, because you you develop kind of thick skin as you're going through your journey, and dealing with your emotions, so to speak. You learn to become cool, calm, and collected. You really and truly do that. That's funny. You really and truly you learn to become very much so cool, calm, and collected. And you learn that, you learn that on your spiritual journey, that you're the sane one. The rest of the world is crazy, seriously. Like, because people who, even in high school, I don't know. I never, I just, I don't know. I don't like following crowds, man. I don't like doing that, even like recently, there was a certain movie that came out, and everybody was like, "Oh, let's go." Everybody was going to, and that's cool. I'll eventually go see it. When I don't, when the hype dies down. I don't like doing that. I don't like running with the crowd, and all of that good stuff. But that's just me. But yeah, but that's that heightened sensitivity. That's that heightened awareness that's that heightened sensitivity, and that's that heightened awareness that you get, that you're blessed with. You really and truly start to become like aware of your surroundings, what's going on in your life, and it's like a balloon in a sense. It's like the more air that out, whatever air or helium you put in it, it starts to expand. You feel lighter, like um the world doesn't feel naturally as heavy. I've often heard people who have gifts, like and everybody, believe you me, everybody's gifts are gonna look, feel different, all that good stuff. Some people I've heard, they'll get certain messages for certain people. They'll go out in society, and they'll give these people these messages, or whatever, or naturally, however that looks. I could count on my hand, like one hand. I don't do that. I don't like doing that. One, I don't really like bothering people. I don't like people bothering me. Seriously, you know, especially if I'm just out in society. I just, just go about my day and just let that be what it is. So, but yeah, you're going to start to have a sensitivity to certain things. You're a lot of it's like out with the old, in with the new. A lot of new things are going to start to, you're going to start to gravitate to maybe like maybe like the older ways of doing things, but with more modern spins to them. And a lot of people may not like understand that, because most people are just, I don't know, they are who they are. But that's one of the, that's just like one one of the things that lets you know that, like your gifts are, your gifts are activating. Your gifts are very powerful. They're your gifts. I would always say, I always tell people, um you use your gifts responsibly. And you know what, I I guess it's true what said, like, there's nothing new under the sun. Like, when I'm scrolling social media, I see a ton of people, tarot cards, tarot cards, tarot cards, tarot cards. So it's like, to me, like, that stuff. I don't know, that's kind. I mean, I did that before, but so that's, I don't know. That I like to kind of refresh things and, reinvent the wheel, so to speak. I like to push my gifts. I like to I like to really and truly push my gifts. So the I guess whatever people call unnatural looks and feels natural. Seriously, almost like breathing in a sense. But even like probably in your childhood, you knew like, you were different. Maybe you were a lover, and maybe you were a lover. You weren't a fighter. Maybe there was just something about you that just stood out. Maybe you were just one of these kids that you didn't really need a lot of people around you. Like, seriously. One thing about being around kids, and especially like the really young ones, there's a lot of truth there's just unadulterated truth that they speak. And it's beautiful how they see the world, and it's beautiful how you can see the world like through your eyes. Because when we get older as adults, we have all this crap piled up on us, and it's just a certain way of thinking. And we see how the world truly is, and it's instead of like what the world truly could be. And it's like, oh, go to college, choose a major, go work for a corporation, drive in horrible traffic, be around horrible people all the time, and that sucks. That really, really sucks. I've been around enough of that nonsense, man. I'm good. Like, really and truly, I'm good. But seriously, but you learn you learn that it's like there's no coincidence. You learn that your gifts are there for you, and you learn that your gifts, you learn that you're always protected, especially if you have a good heart. You learn that you're always protected. You have like no idea of the things that you're probably being protected from. Like for me, the old stuff, like going out at night, hanging out at the club. I don't really do that stuff anymore, but still like to travel and go out and have fun. But just that old stuff just isn't, that's just like not my cup of tea anymore. But you'll learn that along your journey, and you'll start to meet new people, and those people will be even more fascinating, and it'll open up your mind more. And you're going to want to travel to all of these beautiful spiritual places around the world, and you know in XYZ. But one thing I like to talk about is, like, why do your gifts show up at the most insane times? Like, I was working at this call center one time. It was very negative. The people were negative. Yeah, it was crazy. But anyway, so one of my gifts just happened to open up while I was there, and when I tell you I could feel everybody's emotions and all of that stuff that day, it was. I think this was like 2016, something like that, and it was like somebody. I don't know. It was like, oh man, how can I describe it? It was almost like, you watch that movie Aladdin. You rub the thing, and the genie pops out. That's what it felt like, man. It felt like I was in. It felt like I was entering in a. It felt like I was entering in a whole new world. Like really and truly. It really and truly felt like I was entering in a whole new world. But one thing I know and I believe, is like that pressure that you feel around you, on your daily grind, on your day-to-day grind, like when your spiritual gifts are coming in, and when you're developing these gifts, so to speak, that that pressure, what did it say, pressure breaks pipe. So it's only gonna help to enhance and mold you, when you really and truly learn to understand, and sometimes it could feel like a little stressful. You're like, okay, cool, got these different gifts, like, well, how do I, it's like, how do I handle this stuff, like how really and truly, like how do I handle this, it's like, it's almost like it's like working out, and like, pushing up different weight, um and you're getting internally stronger, especially in you're getting internally stronger, especially in a spiritual sense, so yeah. And again, folks, don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to subscribe, and share. Seriously. And when you are spiritually gifted and your gifts are activating, the interesting thing is that you're still going through life, you're still living, you're still, doing whatever it is um that people do, like being around family and all, going out and whatever it is, going to school. You're still doing all of that stuff while all of this stuff is happening. And it's amazing. Like, and if you can truly handle it, man, you are something special. You are really and true. I cannot really sit and describe to you how special and amazing you are. You are amazing just by going through your spiritual journey, and that takes you in that journey. Now I'll say at this point I've had spiritual journeys. Like, seriously, you can you continue to elevate, and you're going to continue to elevate. That's the beautiful thing about it. And another thing is, like, while you're going through your journey, protecting your energy. If I would always say, have a childlike heart, imagination about you, and like somebody said, you're always protected within that. It's like you're always, always, always protected. Just call it fruits of the spirit, however you want to call it, but just and there's so many different fascinating things that you could do with these gifts. Like, it's just amazing what some people out there are doing, with their gifts, man. And it's a, yeah, and the stuff that we're learning about out here in society, stuff that is happening in real time in our real lives, and all the stuff that we're seeing, um just in life since probably 2020, and probably before that, but yeah, man. But those are like some of the things I just wanted to talk about, knowing, knowing if you have like spiritual gifts and all of that good stuff, man. It's an interesting journey. And I would always just tell people, take it a day at a time, take it a step at a time. There's nothing wrong with you. Seriously, you're not the problem. You're not the problem. A lot of times, people around, especially like um if you like walk away from religion, I still believe in God and I pray. No, that's just me though. Everybody again, everybody's religion, and I mean everybody's beliefs. It could go so many different ways. It goes so many different ways. People have to deal with trauma and all this other stuff. But just take your journey one step at a time. And again, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. But again, Mr. Soul Lover Man, folks, as always, I'm out this. Peace. Peace.